Morning, everyone. I've been thinking this week about the story of the woman caught in adultery and how that really demonstrates the kingdom of heaven. And I wanted to kind of just tap into that a bit and explore it. So when that was happening, what was Jesus actually doing at that moment? So basically the story, as you probably know, is that the woman was caught in adultery, and the Pharisees and the crowd were getting ready to stone her, and they came to Jesus and they said, "What do you think?" And he wasn't actually looking. He was looking down at the ground. When I read the story in John, I realized he didn't actually look at anyone. He was looking at the ground, but I think he was actually engaging heaven in that moment. And he was drawing with his finger in the dust, and there's great speculation about what he was actually writing and drawing. But for me, the issue is what was actually going on in his heart at that moment. And I think what was in his heart at that moment was that he was engaging with his Father. He was engaging with heaven and with the Spirit for the heavenly response to the question that he was being asked. And that should be a really encouraging story for us as we face things today, like the situation in America at the moment about racism, and we have no answers, no immediate answers. We castigate and criticize each other for not coming up with answers. But actually, when things are as deep and as painful and as traumatic as the situation faced by Black people in America and around the world, the answer has to be an answer from heaven. It has to be filtered through the characteristics of what it is to be a heavenly person and relate to heaven. And so when Jesus was looking at the ground and drawing in the sand, he was doing that to resist their attempt to pull out of him an answer too quickly, first of all, because by not meeting someone's eyes, you can give yourself time to answer. But he was also in that moment almost not physically closing his eyes, but spiritually closing his eyes and saying, "Father, what is the answer here? What is the answer to the problem of this woman who has sinned by the law and by any moral standard and has been caught in the act, but at the same time does not deserve to die?" And he was aware of all the moral, personal, familial, cultural issues that surrounded her action, the betrayal, the sense of lack of self-worth, the seeking for love, the judgment that was being passed on her, the judgment she passed on herself, the guilt and everything else that she felt in that moment. And his compassion welled up so that he wanted to answer with an answer from heaven. But he was also aware of the trap that the Pharisees were trying to put him in, and how they were trying to manipulate the situation to get him to commit himself to something that would later enable them to use it against him. And so he was in that moment of tension, and he stopped and he took time to eyes down and put his eyes down and draw in the sand. And he made people wait for his answer. He caused them to stop and to think. And for me, this last few weeks, I've been pondering the parallel of that with the pandemic, with the lockdown, where we are in that moment where we have been forced to stop. We have, the cause is something to be dealt with, yes. But what are we doing in that moment? Are we engaging with the Father? Are we doing what it says in Revelation 4:1, coming up into the heavenly realms and engaging with the Father and remaining there in his presence as we seek answers to the things that face us? As we look at America, there is an example there. If you look carefully on the internet, you find a report about the police in Miami who knelt in empathy with the protesters as the protesters approached them. What an incredible way through that situation. And out of that came prayer, weeping, and forgiveness. And that's the testimony of that. And so as Jesus is engaging heaven, he's pulling on heaven, he's calling on heaven, he's calling on his Father and the Spirit, the people that he's in unity with, the union of heaven, for the answer to the situation that he's being asked about. And we too are in that union. We too are part of that relationship, the heavenly dance that goes on between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the intimate relationship. There is no separation between us and them. You know, we have come to Mount Zion. We live in Mount Zion. Are you living in Mount Zion this week? In the problems that you deal with, are you taking that moment to look down, to engage with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and draw in the sand, and ponder and think about what your answer to the problem might be as guided by heaven? How is God speaking to you this week? How are you looking at the world? How are you seeing things? What is the heavenly response to the situation that you're in? Go away and take time with the Father, with the Son, with the Spirit, in that union with them. Engage with them. Put yourself in the middle of the three of them and ask them to give you an answer, because there are answers. There's a heavenly answer to every single problem, but we just need to find it. We need to be spending time with him and doing it. So bless you all. Hope that's been encouraging, and have a good week.